What do you do? What do you do? A man asked me that at church the other night, and he was a stranger for the most part. It was the first time I've been asked that question by somebody who doesn't know me since before COVID happened. And he asked me, "What do you do?" And I hesitated. I didn't speak for a noticeable amount of time, and I answered him from my heart though. I said, I'm going to school for ministry. I do a podcast about Jesus, and I used to be a stand up comedian. And of course, I didn't say it smooth like that. I kind of rambled through it a little bit for the most part. I mean, I said it directly from my heart. And none of those, what's interesting about that thing, but those things I told him is that none of those first two things make me money. But I'm choosing to do that in my heart over everything else in this world. And you might think to yourself, and I've thought this before, I've had these fears, will I fail one day and struggle to be able to provide for my family? Then I'm like, no, God's got me. I'm doing the Lord's work. God has had me blessed since before I knew I was blessed. And when you're living for God, you're doing something that is bigger than a paycheck. You're doing something that is bigger than a promotion, something that is bigger than benefits. You're doing life for something bigger than a few cool toys, cars, some good meals, and a few expensive bottles of wine, even though they might be fire. You're doing life for the one who created you. You're doing life for the one you love and who loves you. You're doing the things he calls us to do. As it says in Jesus said in Matthew, the very last thing that is spoken about the Son of God in this beautiful book, he says in verses 18 through 20, Jesus came and told his disciples, I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples, these new people who believe, to obey all the commands I've given you, and be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the world. We have to do this. When you're living for God, you're working for God. The man asked me that. The man at church asked me, what do I do? And then after that, after I told him, he went back to his seat because the music was about to start. And then after that, after church, he came and he found me. He found me to ask me what the podcast is called. Then we talked more about me turning to ministry instead of stand-up comedy. And then we just got to talking, and in the middle of the conversation, he said, my spirit reminds him of David. Talk about a compliment. My sister-in-law, Sharon, she's got Jesus pouring through her. She's got God on her side, man. She's a little prophetic. Like she gets the vibes, you know? And she told me that she can see it too. She said, my joy when talking about Jesus radiates. And talk about a compliment. And we talked more, man. We talked more. And he took my number down, and he just looked me in my eyes, and he told me he sees big things in my future, in my life, and to keep in touch. And then the next day, he actually added me on Facebook. And I don't have that many mutual friends at church, so it was pretty cool he found me. And he took the time to go find me, you know? And talk about impact. Talk about real impact. Talk about God using him and using me at the same time to do something big in the other person's heart. A total stranger. A total stranger who also loves Jesus. And your human flesh thinks, man, talking to strangers is weird. Nah, it's beautiful. I've been doing it my whole life before I even knew God. It's not weird. And so what if it is weird? Everything is weird right now. Look around. Be weird. Do it. Try it. I bet you have moments like I had this past Wednesday. What do you do? Are you chasing money? A career you don't even really care to be in? Are you chasing attention for other people? Man, I just want God to be like, yo, you're good. I got you. I love you. You're doing well. You got my attention. And I love you guys who listen to the show and are in my life, and I appreciate you. And I don't want everyone else's love like I used to. You know, like I'll drop a pic on Instagram that tells you to get your stuff together and start listening to this podcast again, because I'm here for the real love. I don't want the fake love. Y'all know my heart. God knows my heart. I don't want those likes. I think I do sometimes, but my spirit doesn't. My human flesh thinks I do at times, but what I really crave when I think about the likes, it's not the likes. It's the amount of people that you can reach. It's the amount of ears and hearts that can be moved, because that's the calling that God put on my life. I want to push people to improve. I want to push people to seek and to desire the love of God. Mike Davis helped me feel the love of God the other night at church. That's his name, Mike Davis. He can build anything with his hands. He's been a youth pastor, and now he's leading Bible studies, and he's stepping out of his comfort zone to talk to strangers. He too works for God. He too puts on for Jesus. So Mike Davis is now my brother. I talked to him once, but guess who I'm boys with now at church? Mike Davis. What's good? I made a friend in Jesus, guys. He asked me what I do at first, and I froze a little bit because I don't answer that question anymore like I used to. I used to say, oh, I'm a stand-up comedian with pride. Because, oh, look at me. I make money from doing an art form. Oh, look at me. I'm funny enough to get paid for it. Nah, I wasn't. I just worked harder than most. I just tried. I just showed up. And I just put my energy towards it. Now I put my energy towards God. And we can all do that. All of us. We can all do big things for God, man. We can all have Him in our hearts more. How do you do that? Right? One thing I struggle with in church sometimes is like, they'll tell you everything that's going on in your heart. They'll be like, yes, but then they won't tell you how to fix it, right? Sometimes that happens to me a lot where I'm like, I love the message, but tell me how to fix it. Tell me how to do better. How do you do it? And it's not even like I don't know how to do it. I do, but I just want you to tell me. You're a voice of Jesus. I want you to tell me. And you do it, I'll tell you, by making a daily effort. A daily effort. You eat 3 times a day. You eat 3 times a day plus snacks. Spend time with God 3 times a day in some way. I'll give you some ways you can do it. Pray, read, write, journal, worship music instead of pop music. Listen to worship instead of pop, all right? Serve, talk about Jesus, fellowship, this podcast, the old episodes you missed. Don't stop listening, guys. Don't stop listening. I'm going to be straight up with you guys because I want you to make this show a priority. Because I'll be honest, God is moving, man. He's moving. Don't miss it. Don't fall behind. Don't miss pieces of the story. Because you miss pieces of the story, you're not in the daily presence of God. So stay in the daily presence of God. The next phase of life is coming when I'm going to know more about God. I'm going to be knee deep in the books, in my studies, in my heart, just with God. Let us grow in our faith together. You learn as I learn. It's real. You grow with me. You grow with me. You have God in your life like I have God in my life. We can put on for Jesus, man. And I ask you guys, as Mike Davis asked me, what do you do?